This is the weekly sales meeting for February 19th, 2023. My name is Chris Fleming. You can reach me at chris@cdmediaconsulting.com or go to our website at cdmediaconsulting.com. Today's topic is inversion. According to Webster's dictionary, inversion is a reversal of position, order, form, or relationship. In other words, the condition of being turned inward or inside out. It is the idea of looking at a set of problems from the outside in rather than the inside out. This idea of inversion is a problem-solving technique. It allows you to think about the worst that could happen, and then planning a strategy based on the exact opposite to ensure the worst never happens. It is thinking in reverse. Some of the best and brightest have used this technique to appear as such. They have used it to avoid failure, thus projecting success. It is an idea that takes some getting used to, as it is not a natural occurrence. It does not come easy to the human brain. It is difficult to think about what we don't want before thinking about what we do want. We all want $1 million. That is an easy thought to wrap our heads around. Few of us start with the thought process of, I don't want to lose $1 million, as that would be tragic. The root of this concept goes back to the ancient world. If we go back to ancient times, we can find this in history. In Rome, for instance, there was a group of philosophers known as the Stoics. They had names like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. The Stoics would spend their time thinking about the worst that could happen, and then live their lives avoiding these worsts. This way, failure was not an option, as they avoided the steps that would lead there. Now, they may not have been particularly adventurous. They may have believed danger lurked around every corner, but this caution expended less energy than, say, the ambitious, all because they avoided the things that might lead down the negative path. If we applied this today, we find that droves of people spend their time trying to be a success, while a scant few spend their time trying to avoid failure. While I am not advising laziness, I am saying that careful calculation could save critical resources. These critical resources, including human ones, might be otherwise wasted by blind ambition. Charlie Munger is the other part of the brain trust at Berkshire Hathaway. He is the business partner of the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett. The German mathematician Carl Gustav Jacob Jacobi popularized this idea of inversion. His words in German were "Man muss immer umkehren." In English, that translates to invert, always invert. Jacobi designed his thought process and confined it to his study of mathematics. Others have extrapolated this method. They have applied it to modern management and functionality as a way to root out failure. It is how Mr. Munger arrived at his famous saying about death. He would say, "All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I will never go there." That is the concept of inversion. Avoid that which would cause the negative to occur. Inversion is not always the correct path forward. While in some areas it would be okay to turn the world on its ear, there are others that make this a fool's errand. It may be good to install a novice with enthusiasm rather than an incumbent with antiquated habits, but in specific areas this may be a disaster. We may want fresh thinking when it comes to our politics, but when it comes to brain surgery, not so much. Experience can be the teacher that enthusiasm wants to have. Yet this habitual experience can lead to stagnation. If one is to put into practice this idea of inversion, it must be challenged at each turn. With new information and new stimuli, the end result could change. Not acting as a plan for avoidance could lead to missed opportunities. If information gets ignored, like with mathematics, the slate gets wiped clean with each new equation. As human beings, it is hard for us to let go of past thought processes as we prepare to solve future problems. We are often influenced by our own past performance. We can use history to guide the future, but we can't let it vote. Let's say we become converts to this technique and use it to govern our business going forward. Where can this be a useful technique? Thinking about all the things you can do to avoid failure and making them part of your daily routine. Cold calling doesn't bother me, but I struggle when I don't have actual contacts. So I have worked into my prospecting playbook a series of calls to gather contacts. In my prospecting block, I will make 10 to 20 calls to brand new people. The purpose of these calls is to get contact information and a roadmap to connection. That is all. I will move them to the call log for next week. I will add 10 to 20 new people in the investigative phase and keep my well full of contacts. I have removed one phase of that process which gives me trouble and replaced it with skills where I am proficient. I thought about what I didn't want to happen and counteracted that with an operation of strength. How could it be detrimental? Let's think about that in the same framework. Let's say we don't like rejection, and many do not, so we will avoid talking to anyone new, hence no rejection. See what I did there? But in the selling world, that leads to poverty and a pantry full of ramen. For those who like eating, the better thought process is about not wanting to eat ramen every day. Thus, I will prospect like a fiend. I will cold call like a possessed animal. And I will present with tenacity. And I will close without fear, thus avoiding the lifelong prospect of the 7-day ramen diet. No offense to the ramen lovers, it's good once, not every day. But by turning a perceived negative into a net positive, we can retrain the brain to use the worst case scenario to fuel the best. Take what we don't want and don't like and channel it into our wheelhouse. Fear and hope are at a crossroads. This idea that we are hopeful about our own outcome overrides the fear that is lurking around every corner. Think about buying a lottery ticket. The thought process is never about the $2 we threw into the wind as the odds against us are so great. It is all about the internal fantasy land of winning, the one where we get to walk into the boss and quit in some grand gesture of self-satisfaction, and then travel the globe on our golden chariot while people bring us things on silver platters. Or am I the only one that has that dream? The Stoic, the realist, the one who practices inversion, would tell us to avoid buying the tickets, because the loss of revenue far outweighs the fantasy conjured up in our heads. Take that money and put it into savings or investments. The dreamer would think, buy the lottery ticket, and then dream about where to spend the winnings. But then the next day comes and you are right back where you started, only without the ticket money. And then there's always the worst case scenario, the one where both fear of loss and hope of gain become so intertwined in our thought process that we end up taking no action. We become paralyzed by indecision. We change our minds every 5 minutes because we cannot decide what is best. So no action is better than action. In this scenario, we wind up with the worst possible outcome. In this case, we become politicians. And I'm sure we can all agree, they have the worst kind of inversion. They have the inversion that causes their heads to be planted firmly in their backsides. Call this rectal cranial inversion. There are business leaders that suffer from this disease also. This disease of schizophrenic indecision. This disease of the flavor of the month or week or day. Try to avoid that at all costs. It is a costly operation to attempt removal. Best you don't wind up in that position at all. My new book, You Can't Lead from the Back of the Room, Nor Should You, is now available on Audible as an audiobook download. If you like what you have heard here today, please consider downloading a copy or two. You can always send one to a friend. Go to cdmediaconsulting.com right now and follow the instructions to order.